I'm very excited to welcome, we have Dirk Lueth from Upland, who will be talking about the largest metaverse. So as Angela was saying, you know, Fortnite's going to be a street in a much larger world, and there's some expansive places that are currently being created. So welcome, Dirk.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dirk, or great audience. Yeah, my name is Dirk. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Upland. Just raise your hands who had heard of Upland here. Just curious. Okay. So yeah, let me explain you a little. So this session is a little different. Of course, I do a little bit of advertising what Upland is about, but you know we're living in a very stormy times, and I want to explain you what it means to build a stable economy around NFTs, around metaverse, right? So I'm from background. I'm an actual economist. I don't want to get too theoretical, but it hopefully gets some interesting insights. So one thing I have to say, everything I say here is, science is always a little bit subjective. It tries to be objective, right? So we can get, over beer discussions, some opinions which I have, right? You might have some other opinions, but I'm happy to do that in private. So quickly, what is Upland?
Can you hear me?
Oh, do we have sound?
Okay. Audio.
No sound? Okay. So
but it's not just the property game, it is so much more. Upland is the metaverse that is fast becoming the central hub for players to build their digital life. Technology is changing the way we interact with each other, the things we do online, the economy. It's changing it all, and Upland is at the forefront of that change. Upland is a new line of opportunity, creativity, and diversity. Upland empowers players to pursue their passions, build their life the way they want to, all with true ownership. In Upland, anyone can buy, invest, or flip virtual real estate. Players can collect sports memorabilia from their favorite athletes, they can build their dream house, and even create a business. Players will be able to own, drive, and race the cars of their dreams. They'll be able to attend concerts.
Okay. I think we're in the cellar.
Their favorite musicians, collect and show off artwork and NFTs, and so much more. In Upland, we really are rebuilding the world, and we're doing it with players like you.
All right. Was a smooth video in the cellar. Okay, good. So quickly, we in Upland, we launched an open beta in early 2020. Since then, we have sold over 3 million NFTs. As you probably heard in the video, so we are metaverse based on the real world. We're currently live in 18 cities across the US. However, you don't have to build in those cities to play. We have 2.5 million registered users now with great retention. Day 7, 60% of our players actually coming back from all around the world. And we're growing quite nicely. We raised a little bit of money. And so what do we do differently very quickly? So first of all, when we set out Upland, we always said we want to address a mass market. That means we want to also reach average users. So maybe that's the reason you didn't hear about us, because you're probably all very NFT versed, but we do care less about the 5 million, 7 million piece of land sales. We really care about more getting lots of people on board. That's why we had a mobile first strategy. So we're the only blockchain metaverse which is available on iOS and Android as well as on the web. You can use credit card, PayPal to buy something in Upland, and you can actually extract monetary value by selling NFTs for US dollars. So then I mentioned that we are back to the real world. This, of course, gives a natural scarcity. And last but not least, everything is a little bit curated because we don't want to have a completely chaotic world. We still want that it looks like, like the real world. We have 230,000 landowners. I think there was an old chart. We are approaching 250,000 landowners. I think that makes us, 10 times larger as others who are out there. This is a little bit how Upland looks like. These are shops, where you can go. You can zoom in. It's quite very intuitive how to do that. But let's talk about a little bit, what is actually a metaverse economy? And now you have to digest this, and I'm going to read it out. It's not that easy to, right? So. Metaverse economy, when people, derive a real value from unreal tokenized assets created by a system of beliefs in artificial scarcity, right? We know that, NFTs are always about scarcity, and we all know that, it's always people believe in certain projects, people believe in the apes, people believe in something, and that's the reason why they, give it some value. But how do you categorize it? So the idea is, when you look at this chart here, and I just took like the sports industry as an example. And that's how we do it actually at Upland. We say, okay, we have marketplaces on one hand, right, which have which are quite transactional, more general. You have fan tokens, which obviously are not NFTs. Then you have the collectibles, some brands there, and then of course you have the metaverse. However, when you look at those business models and how they work, so marketplaces, they're very specific, right? They're all about trading. That's what they do, right? What they do in a very good manner. I think the fan tokens, there's a very specific use case, and when you think about the collectibles, they have a certain utility, they have some entertainment value when you play it, right? With So Rare, right? That's what you have. A metaverse is much more, probably heard all the word platform, Facebook, whatever. These are all platforms, at least they try to be. But so where we say you enable actually interactions between users, right? That's what makes a metaverse so, and it's much more than this. There's not just an NFT. Most likely will not have only one utility. It will have many utilities. Yeah. So in that context, also give you one example. So we have a partnership with the NFLPA, and you can purchase, we're not just dropping NFTs in Upland. You can do so much more with it. It's all gamified, right? And we put, because obviously it's a metaverse, we're based on the real world, so you have to actually travel to the stadium in order to purchase NFTs. It's gamified. You have to get to a fan score. Only when you have a high fan score, then you can purchase very rare NFTs and so on. So NFLPA just named us as the best breakout product of the year. We're quite proud of that. So, but let's go back to the whole categorization. So we have the metaverse, the economy. It's like a nation state, and it has its own dynamics. So now, hopefully, it does not get too theoretical, but let's talk about a little bit about the fundamentals. So when you think about an economy, you have always 4 factors of production. The first factor is basically land. We all know that metaverses, they're great in selling land, but that's how all gets started, right? But land is not, it's actually the resource. But land could also be that you mine somewhere, right, and get other resources. Maybe you extract, artificial oil or something out of it. The second one is then, you have people who are coming up with ideas to create something. These are the entrepreneurs. Every economy needs entrepreneurs to create something, or creators, right? People who are coming up with, new ideas how to gamify certain things, NFTs, or how to come up with awesome shops. That's what we have in our community. They're coming up with so many great ideas we just cannot come up with. That's also the reason why we have a third-party developer platform where people can develop their own applications on top of Upland. Then, of course, when you want to build something, you always need capital, right? In the real world, you go to venture capitalists trying to raise money, but also there's other ways in Upland to raise the capital. It means the machines. Maybe if it's external, you need if you want to create some NFTs, you need Adobe or something to create it, right? You need some kind of tools to do it, right? Or you do it in-game, right? You use in-app currency and so on. You maybe attract people to say, hey, you want to give me some money so I can build something, here's the plan, right? So we really want to replicate what's in there in the world. And last but not least, we have labor, people who are supporting you, building the ideas, who are supporting the entrepreneurs to build something. Yeah, so this labor could be either people, designers who maybe design a nice house for you, which you want to put into the metaverse, or in the metaverse, you actually do some kind of artificial bridges. So what we have in Upland is we have a resource token, it's called Spark. And when you want to build a house or when you want to build a car, you need to stake Spark in order to build something. The more you stake, the faster you build. And you can also invite other community members to build something and to build it a little bit faster. So we have a few tokens. So we multi-token metaverse in Upland. Okay, and then coming to the function of currency. So there's different ways of thinking about it as economists, but normally you have 3 functions. One is a unit account. So what does it? So in Upland, you actually get a denomination. You get $1 for 1,000 UPEX, which is our in-app currency. Yeah, so that's one thing. It's just a name. Then you have the medium of exchange, which is very important. So when you want to buy something in a metaverse, right, instead of bartering, you say, okay, trade a property against a virtual car, right? It's always hard. You need the currency to be the thing in the middle, and that's what you have. That's the function of a utility token. And last but not least, you have the store of value. When the currency itself carries value, like Bitcoin, and that's something which is, I think, what I believe as an economist is very tricky with the current games which are out there. We've seen that a lot of games have dropped in value because obviously, because of the downturn. So, some currencies are worth now 20 or 30% what they used to be worth before. That's the reason, because you're mixing utility and store of value together in the game, and that's very risky for a game economy. What we're doing at Upland is actually we have a fixed exchange rate for in-app currency, so $1, 1,000, that does not change. Consequences that our users in Upland, the values didn't go down now, it's still going up. Upland is very much still thriving, right? Because, dollar is a dollar. And then when you look at this, we call that somehow the flywheel. So when you want to kick off an economy, at the beginning you have to subsidize it to get it going. But the basic idea is, we have a few major trends in the crypto space, right? And what you need to do, and then in the metaverse, right? You need to create something what people want to do. It's not just they go there and speculate. They will move away from those games. You want to create it. You want to entertain them, right? Once you do that, right? Then you have to really carefully curate the whole economy, right? You get more people coming in, and then your economy starts growing, right? And then you have more potential, more brands are coming in. When more brands are in, it becomes more interesting for other people, and the whole thing starts to accelerate. And that's what we're currently seeing in Upland quite significantly. So, what are my closing thoughts? I got super excited about when Bitcoin came around. I did once a PhD. I wrote a PhD about private and state-controlled currencies. When I saw Bitcoin comes around, I said, "Oh, that's so awesome!" Right? For the first time, I can actually use what I once. It's just academic stuff, and. But one important thing is, I know there's decentralization maximalists and centralization maximists. The truth is, and the way economics works, it's not that you just go for one or the other. When you think about it, there are two curves. I don't have them here. There's a curve of cost of decentralization, and there's a cost curve of centralization. And where those two curves meet, that's the optimum for an economy, how an economy can work. So to give you one example, if we would let now, because right now, we're still in lots of controls at Upland, especially when it comes to economy, with a few pools, how we distribute tokens and so on. Because the reason is because the Upland economy is still fragile, right? Because if you have now one or two people coming in, they're scammers or people finding loopholes, right? And you have a little amount of users, they could potentially destroy the economy, right? When you have, let's say, 10 people in there, one bad actor comes in, well, you have an issue, right? It's 10%. But as the economy grows and becomes more self-sustainable, as the so-called velocity is increasing, what is interesting now is then, maybe you have 1 million users, 10 million, 100 million users, and if then a bad actor comes in, right, hopefully, he's not able to destroy it, because his impact is much larger, a smaller scale. So I think that's what we have to always in mind, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to build something what people actually enjoy, and on the fun side, but also, when they want to build, their own business, digital businesses, and so they don't not lose their money. And that's also why it's also important, open versus closed, right? I think we are a big proponent, of the open metaverse. So we're introducing what is called now the NFT Portal in the second half of the year. We already have a beta version live. So we will be able to import NFTs from other blockchains into Upland, Solana, Ethereum, and everywhere else. Let's say when you want to run and operate an art gallery, now you can import them all to an Upland, and then you can go and show them to people, of course, in like nice 3D rooms, or you can also sell them to other players, right? But you don't have to care anymore about blockchain, because I also believe blockchain doesn't matter, right? If you're a blockchain maximalist, yeah, they're all it's just technology at the end of the day. You have to create the real value, but probably heard it many times. An economy will also go through cycles. I mean, we have a very drastic cycle right now. The problem is, right now, what I mentioned earlier, when your token is connected to an external cycle, it can destroy also your internal cycles, right? And that's where you have to be very cognizant about that, how you create that. And that's what we're currently seeing. Now, people are just saying, oh, I lost so much money, I'm not going to play or going to use that anymore because it just doesn't make sense for me, right? So, but there will be also, because we're building here nation states in the metaverse, right? And they work very much like countries. Next thing is, people need to be able to advance, yeah? So it's a socioeconomic mobility. So if you're a small player, we have that in Upland. People who only invested $5 to get started, but they have today a net worth of $60,000, $70,000, right? They work themselves up, right? It's not just the people who are coming in, dropping, lots of money. It's really people who are working hard to get there, right? And those people, it's actually what we want to get engaged. You need the other people as well, right? Because they don't have the time to grind them up, right? They're part of the economy. But that's very important that people have a reason to move up, to become entrepreneurs, to create something, to create value. Then the next thing is utility. Probably heard it many times here on this conference. NFTs, we showed that with the NFLPA. Your NFTs need to have utility. You need to be able to use them. In Upland, we're about to introducing cars now. So in Upland, when you want to go from San Francisco to New York, you have to take a plane, and it takes you 20 minutes to go there, right? And it takes you actually some money. When you want to take a car going from A to B, I live in San Francisco to Napa Valley, you need a car to go there. Or you can fire up car racetracks, right? That's also a nice thing where you see actually the real world and people are doing their car races, and that's all coming now on Unity. Last thing is then, second last thing is scarcity. That's what, as I mentioned earlier, Upland is based on the real world, so land is natural scarce. And but that's very important because that's how our economic systems work, right? If everything is there as much as you want, it's not that of interest anymore for lots of people, right? When it gets too easy, that's what games come about, right? You always have to work a little bit harder to get to something. And last but not least, the most important thing, what I always say, you have to be transparent, and you have to create trust, right? Because if you don't have trust, and it's the same thing with the Federal Reserve now, European Central Bank, if people stop trusting the policymakers, if they stop trusting the central banks, inflation will go up. I mean, they have a lot of tools, increasing interest rates and all that stuff, but if people stop believing, take Venezuela or so, right? If they stop believing in a currency, it just goes, through the roof. And that's so that's most important when you're building in a metaverse, right? Also, when you're creating NFTs, never forget the topic about trust. If you want to find out more about it, so very proud. I wrote with Kathy Hackle. I don't know who knows her. She's the godmother of the metaverse. And with Tommaso Di Bartolo, we wrote. Unfortunately, the video is not playing. From UC Berkeley, we wrote a book, Navigating the Metaverse. Was published last month. It's #1 on Amazon. So, and we hope, Yatsu from Animoca Brands wrote the foreword. So we hope, we can help, to explain more to people, how things work. It's very basic. If you're deep into it, might be not the right one for you. We have some interesting economy highlights in there. You might not have heard about it. But we wrote the book because we're talking to so many people. We're talking about the same thing over and over again. So, okay, let's make it simpler and just get the book out there, right? And we have also a podcast. It's called Navigating the Metaverse. So we're inviting, like thought leaders from all around, the industry. So if you want to search for it on Apple or Spotify, it's quite insights you have there. Okay, good. So that's me. That's our llama called Miles B. Chain, our hero. And if you want to reach me, here's our Twitter, or the Twitter, of course, from Upland, if you want to follow us. And I think we're open to a few minutes for some questions. Rebecca? Oh, they all vanished there. Okay, good. But I'm happy to take some questions if there's some. Okay, made everyone quiet. Yeah. Yeah. So what I mentioned earlier, so what we're launching is, we launched in a beta with Wax, the NFT Portal. And what we are doing is actually we're wrapping, we're taking the NFT, we're taking it to custody, right? Then we're wrapping it, and then it's going to be reproduced in Upland, right? And the interesting thing is, but most likely we also want to provide utility to it, right? Let's say you import a car, right? We want to enable you, right? I cannot promise anything right now, but the idea is that you can also use that car in car racing or elsewhere, right? At the same token, you can also upload it. Yeah? When you say, hey, I have an NFT I purchased in Upland, but I don't, for whatever reason, don't want to keep it in Upland. I want to sell it on OpenSea. Feel free then to do that as well, right? So, and we're going to start with Ethereum, other blockchains. Just imagine you have all your flow stuff there, NBA Top Shots, right? You're a big fan, or let's say LeBron, right? But LeBron also did several projects on different blockchains. Now you can have everything in one place. I think that's very, very compelling value proposition. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so first of all, we use the token because the tokens are for us just a vehicle, as I showed earlier, just as a utility, right? If I would use now Ethereum or something, because when we are opening up new cities, we are minting 60 NFTs per second, right? We just opened up Las Vegas and we sold 10,000 properties within 5 minutes or so. And when we would do that on Ethereum, and we had to pay gas fees, our users interact with the blockchain all the time. Ethereum is just not the business model for that, right? It's just not working. Yeah. Now we can argue which is the best blockchain. Happy to have that over a beer discussion, right? But the idea is really to conserve the the ease of use for the average users, because 65% of our users, we did actually recently a survey. They do not own NFTs outside of Upland, right? So that shows we are able to onboard just regular users. And this is so important for market liquidity. It's not just us here, 500,000 people maybe who are in the NFT space. You want to onboard millions of users and make it interesting, right? And then we use, to continue with that question, is we use tokens also for other purposes. I mentioned earlier we have Spark to build anything in Upland. We're also going to introduce another token, which is called STEM. You need STEM in order to support everything live. When you have a dog in Upland or a tree, you need to have STEM. If you don't have enough STEM, your dog dies, right? So, yeah.
So I have a question. I have some of the NFL digits from the game, and there's an active community that does collecting and comparing collections. But I was wondering, this is my first question, what some of the collections and gamification of the NFL NFTs, and also what are the next sports that will be coming after NFL?
Yeah, so first of all, we have a little gamification right now with the fan score, right? We're advancing this now. You can have collections. You can have actually, we have also signing events, right? Where you can have your NFT signed. So we're adding these kind of features to that particular thing. And one day also you can put your like say you have a 3D jersey or 3D football, maybe put it in your in-home experience as well, right? So that's we just have to build that out. And we can say that next week, hopefully, when everything works out, so we will also move now into the world of, I'm European, I'm German, so I say football, but I mean soccer, right? So most likely we're going to announce something very soon in that space as well, because we're going also, because right now we're only in the US, we recently announced Rio, and now also we're going to Europe. Yeah, okay, so the question is, okay, that's a very good question, because we know we have now 7 or 8% inflation with the US dollars, right? That's an issue itself, right? I don't know what the exact number is currently. And so first of all, we're not directly pegged. So Apex, in-app currency is not a stable coin, right? That's very important when you build it, because we as Upland never buy back Apex, right? You can only extract monetary value by selling an NFT, yeah? So, however, of course, if now the inflation, I hope not, in the US gets out of hand, right? And if we get we are probably too young to experience that, right? But I did a lot of research that there were times, we have that in Venezuela today, right? But you have it also in Europe and elsewhere. You have to go over 20 or 30% in inflation, then actually the value goes down. It's going to get difficult. And I have a concept in my mind, right? How we're going to create something new, which works very much like a basket. And that could be quite interesting because now actually our currency is going to be more stable than what you have with the dollar. But that's also be a discussion how we do that. Thank you. Is that Jody? Jody. All right. More questions? Questions? So there's not an event, right? Today we have 1 million users, tomorrow 2 million. Okay, now it's stable, we can go, right? The way it's going to work is very incremental. So to be honest, this has never been done before, right? So it's really hard to tell you because fiat currencies, they're managed by governments and, they can do whatever they want to do normally, right? But our vision is to, what we say is we want to make it stable and then hand over more responsibility to the community. Just recently introduced, for instance, that people can trade UPEX within Upland, right? Or give UPEX to someone. Before we didn't allow that because we wanted to see how it works with the economy. And we're going to introduce also DAOs. That means people will be able to vote over things, also about monetary policy. And we have to see how that pans out, right? And to see, because at the end of the day, it's a complex matter, right? And it's not always easy, for people who don't spend a lot of time thinking about it to do the right decisions, right? Maybe also there's a committee, but I cannot tell you right today when the right moment is. We will always go in baby steps and see, is that working? Okay, next step, right? So that's the approach. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, is my mic on?
Just walk out.
Okay. I'm not sure if my mic, oh, there it is. Sorry, guys. Thank you so much, Dirk. Sorry to leave you hanging there, but incredible talk so far. And, I have your book on my reading list. I know Kathy Hackle is an OG, so if you guys are not familiar, definitely grab the book. We will be introducing our next speaker, so thank you so much, Dirk.
Thank you.
We appreciate
Bye.
you. Go, Dirk.